Checking, check, test. בראשית ברא אלוקים את השמיים ואת הארץ. Mic check. Let me see. Okay. Baruch, Mitzvah, Dinesh. Okay, let me know if the mic's good. Sounds good on Facebook, app, and YouTube. Very good. Good job, Dinesh. Okay, I'm going to start in 1 minute. BeEzrat HaShem. Okay, see YouTube's catching up, good. TikTok, still being censored, unfortunately. It's always winning on TikTok. Used to have 300-400 people by now. But now we have less. Setup, that's what we can do. TikTok community doesn't have as much zchiyot or people. BeEzrat HaShem, I'll pray for you guys. Alright, let's get going. Here we go. Almost 10 seconds. Is there sound in the background that you guys hear from the fan, or it's okay? Already? Yeah, okay. TikTok community. YouTube, you guys are doing good these days. Oh, that's fine. Oh, you have fan noise. Thank you very much, both. Okay. All right. Yeah. בשם השם נעשה ונצליח, שיעור תורה, ברוכים הבאים. We're back here on a Wednesday night, Stump the Rabbi series, where after some Divrei Torah, you guys, BeEzrat HaShem, will ask some questions, and BeEzrat HaShem HaKadosh Baruch Hu will give us the answers. Tonight's shiur is going to be for the Ilui Nishmat of Perel Silva Bat Osher Yitz. BeEzrat HaShem, her HaKadosh Baruch Hu will elevate her neshama for all of the good deeds that her dear daughter and sons are doing in her behalf, and will continue BeEzrat HaShem to do, whether it's sponsoring the shiur or it's sponsoring the Limud Torah on her behalf. Certainly the chesed that's unlike any other that you can do for someone that's passed away is to do mitzvot on their behalf, such as helping people do tshuva by sponsoring the shiur and helping people learn Torah BeEzrat HaShem in our kollel. Anyone that wants more details, we'll get into that in a second, but first and foremost, of course, we have to remind everyone that these shiurim are also for the Atzlacha Rabba, Refuah Shlema, for Rabbi Ephraim ben Shulamit, Rabbanit Sarah bat Anat, Rabbanit Levana bat Sarah, Sarah bat Levana, Avi Mori David ben Nisriya, Imi Morati Doris bat Jora, and all of Am Yisrael and all the righteous Noahites that continue to learn Torah with us, continue to contribute and help us do all the wonderful things that we're doing, Baruch Hashem. Anyone that wants to sponsor these weekly shiurim can go on our website, BeEzratHaShem.org. Right in the front page is a donate button with multiple options, and one of them is to sponsor the shiurim. For those of you that have asked me to come to your communities, to come set something up, as I've said many times, it's hard for me to travel, but I'm willing to do it, but only if people arrange large events. So you could contact us if you could set something up. If not, we could just simply continue doing what we're doing now, which Baruch Hashem is helping tens of thousands of people anyway. Also, for those of you that have yet to fulfill the mitzvot of PURIM, and want a place to do it, that you know it's going to go to the right place, go to bhpurim.org, bhpurim.org. That's our website where you could do the Mitzvah of MaChatzit HaShekel for each member of the family, including if the wife is pregnant for the upcoming baby, BeEzrat HaShem. Also the Mitzvah of MATANOT LaEvyonim to help the poor. This is more important than Mishloach Manot or even the MaChatzit HaShekel, even though they both go to the same destination. And for those of you that are not familiar with all the things that we do during Purim to help the poor, we combine Torah and Chesed at the same time. And this year we're doing something that's bigger than what we even did last year, BeEzrat HaShem, which we'll discuss tonight as well. But we're going to have, BeEzrat HaShem, 500 Avrechim learn Torah on Purim, and also 500 kids. The Yeshiva of Mordechai. The Yeshiva of Mordechai was kids learning Torah, and that's really the big thing that canceled the evil decree of Haman. So we're going to have 500 Avrechim, Torah scholars, and also 500 kids studying Torah on Purim for a few hours, and each one of them is going to get a money to help them with the holiday, to help them during this time of the year. Baruch Hashem, it's not only helping them, but it's also helping all of Am Yisrael have more Torah in the world, Baruch Hashem. So this is going to be a huge event. We usually get some recordings from it, like we did last year and the years before. So if you want to be part of a Torah / Chesed and helping the poor all at the same time, go to bhpurim.org. And you could do it over there. I know that there are many organizations that are raising money at this time, but I don't really know of anyone that's doing what we've done and what we're doing. So for any of you that still haven't fulfilled that mitzvah, highly recommend going there. So with that being said, we of course have a new book that we are starting, which is Sefer Vayikra in the Torah. We also have Purim upon us, which is a unique holiday, that actually really starts tomorrow morning, because we have the fast of Esther. Tomorrow, starting, at different, pretty much at sunrise or a little bit before sunrise. Just check your local times to make sure that you know when the fast starts. It begins in the morning and ends at sundown or Tzet Kochavim. But the exact times you should look at based on your zip code and your location of when the fast is. The fast is a relatively easy fast where you don't eat, you don't drink, but you're able to drive, you're able to conduct your businesses, whatever it is. It's just in essence fasting. Of course, the point of all of the fast is to elevate ourselves to get closer to Hashem and study Torah. But again, not everyone is able to study Torah and just take off a day of work, so you're allowed to work tomorrow. As far as the Megillah, on the other hand, the Megillah, we're actually going to be reading it on Motzei Shabbat. Anyone that's in the exile and anyone that's in Yerushalayim is going to be reading it on Sunday. So we have Motzei Shabbat, and for anyone that's in America and England, in Australia, Canada, most of Israel, is any place that doesn't have a choma, a wall that was covering it at the time of Yeshua ben Nun, which we'll discuss tonight, BeEzrat HaShem, why this is even the case. All of those places read the Megillah on the 14th of Adar, which is on Motzei Shabbat, and also again in the morning. Then you have the walled cities, like Yerushalayim, have to read the Megillah on Sunday and also Monday morning. So in essence, there's a very big discussion about it, why this is the case, and many people don't realize the significance of all of this. And what does it have to do with Yeshua ben Nun? Why is Yeshua ben Nun even connected to Megillat Esther? Yeshua ben Nun preceded the Megillah by over 1,000 years. So he wasn't alive at the time of the Purim story. So why is this even connected to him? Even more so, the Parashat Vayikra. Parashat Vayikra starts the Sefer Vayikra, and it is perhaps the most difficult part of the Torah, one of the most difficult part of the 5 books of Moses. because it talks about all of the matters of korbanot, the sacrifices, purity, impurity, very, very deep subject that Chazal teach was taught to children because their souls were so pure that they were able to retain the information with much ease in comparison to adults that unfortunately made sins, and it's more difficult for them to absorb the information. So as difficult as Vayikra is, of course, there is an endless amount of lessons we can learn from it. But again, at the same token, we have to understand what's the connection between Vayikra, what's the connection between and Megillat Purim, what's the connection within all of this and helping the poor people specifically at this time of the year. Quite frankly, the mitzvot that we have during this time of the year are very significant if you understand them. If you don't understand them, they just become, very, robotic and meaningless, and it just seems like another opportunity to just spend money if you don't really understand the value of them. So first and foremost, we're going to start off by going into the parasha. Then we're going to go into Purim, connect it all BeEzrat HaShem, and try to see where Kadosh Baruch Hu takes us before we start taking your questions. So Parashat Vayikra starts off with a lesson in humility, but also a lesson in the significance of Moshe Rabbeinu in the eyes of Hashem. The first word, Vayikra, where it says Vayikra el Moshe, that Hashem called Moshe. The word Vayikra has a small letter Aleph, an unusually small letter Aleph in the word, in order to give us the message that Moshe Rabbeinu was the greatest of all prophets, in Am Yisrael, but there was a great prophet, named Bilam for the Goyim. But although Bilam had a certain strength that even Moshe Rabbeinu did not have, certainly he was not beloved by Hashem like Moshe Rabbeinu was, because when Hashem calls Moshe, he calls him Vayikra, whereas when Hashem calls Bilam, he calls him Vayikra, which is missing that Aleph. So in essence, it's the same exact word, but there is that extra Aleph that Kadosh Baruch Hu gives to Moshe. Why is this so important? Because Moshe Rabbeinu did not ask for this extra credit. He did not ask for this extra anything. In fact, he thought that he was the equivalent to even the lowliest of men. And specifically because of this is why Kadosh Baruch Hu loved him and also made him the vessel of the Torah itself. And Moshe Rabbeinu knew the entire Torah. He received the entire Torah. What he gave us, what he was allowed to give us, is the essence of the Torah. The essence of the Torah is what we have, which is a endless amount of information, to the point where Rabbi Eliezer ben Holkana says that if the entire ocean was ink and all of the trees were quills, that you can write with at the time, and all of the land was paper, it would not be enough to write down all of the Torah knowledge that he knew himself. And what he knew, what Rabbi Eliezer ben Holkanus knew, was not even a lick of water in the ocean in comparison to his rabbi, Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai. And of course, Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai didn't know anywhere near as much Torah as Moshe Rabbeinu. So we see that the Torah is endless. And that's why even if you start off with the same exact topic, you can elaborate on it literally to no end. Furthermore, we go into the Torah, we see that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives us a Musar lesson. A Musar lesson through the Korbanot, through the sacrifices, where the Torah says, in regards to the sacrifices, Adam ki yakriv mikem, korban la'Adonai mina behema, mina bakar. That when a man, this is in chapter 1 of Vayikra, which is Leviticus in English, chapter 1, verse number 2, where it talks about, where it says, when a man among you brings an offering to Hashem from animals, from the cattle, or from the flock, shall you bring your offering. So in the Hebrew word, the word behema it's a kosher animal, it's cattle, and bakar is also, in essence, you're seeing here two words that are more or less synonymous, one after the other. So why say behema? Why say bakar? Now, if you say, listen, you need to bring a sacrifice. What kind of sacrifice are you going to bring? Oh, I'm going to bring a cow. Oh, so you're bringing a behema. Okay. Now, if you go to the meat store and you say, listen, I want some meat, you're not going to tell the guy, I want behema, or I want a cow. You're going to say, I want bakar. Bakar is the meat. But obviously, it's the same thing. This is a cow, this is a cow, but there's two different words, and they're used one after the other. So the Baalei Musar teaches here, that's because the first time the word for the animal, behema, is used, it's not referring to the sacrifice, but rather referring to the one that's bringing the sacrifice, the person. The person that brought this sacrifice, this bakar, he is a behema. Why is he a behema? Because he made a sin. Now you say, yeah, but he did it unintentionally. If it was intentionally, the punishment would be much worse. The fact that he didn't pay attention to the reality that Hashem is watching everything, that he has to have fear of Hashem, that he has to be much more careful with his actions, that already puts him in a category where he's acting like a behema. He's acting like an animal. Why? An animal doesn't have rules. It can eat where it wants to eat. It can drink where it wants to drink. If it wants to drink its friend's water, it'll drink its friend's water. If it wants to eat its friend's food, it'll eat its friend's food. It wants to walk. It wants to sleep. It wants to procreate. There's no a loyalty among the wives or the husbands in the animal world, with the exception of a couple of exceptional animals like the dove. But the point being is that if an animal walks around and just decides to eat wherever, drink wherever, procreate wherever, you're not going to say, oh, that's a bad cow. You're just going to simply say, the cow's being a cow. But if a person, needless to say, if a Jew walks around as if there's no God in heaven that's actually watching every action and every thought that you do, does business in a way as if there's no God watching every transaction that you do, handles their body or mishandles their body or her body as if there's no God that gave rules for morality, then in essence that person is acting like a behema, is acting like an animal. So the Torah tells us, this behema that's bringing a behema, that's bringing a sacrifice, he has rules, even for the sacrifice. You say, yeah, but he did it accidentally. Even then, if he didn't do it accidentally, it'd be much worse than just a behema. Much worse than a behema. Now a person says, yeah, but sometimes you have to bring this behema where you're not sure if you actually made a sin. How is it so? So Chazal bringing an example. If the one person was eating at the Bet HaMikdash, he's eating, he has to take a break, he's human, he has to eat, and he has two pieces of meat in front of him. Now, he put one piece of meat, and that meat was the meat that he has to, he wants to eat, kosher meat, good meat, everything else. The meat next to it looks the same, but it's actually chelev, and it's part of the sacrifice, and he's forbidden from eating it. Now he eats the meat, and then his friend comes and goes, whoa, I think you just ate the wrong meat. Well, how do you know? I'm not sure. Maybe I did, maybe I didn't. For that, he has to bring a sacrifice. Now he's going to say, yeah, listen, this possible accident just cost me $25,000 to buy a cow, to bring the sacrifice. Maybe I really didn't do it. Maybe it was just a loss of money. So Chazal says, no, the fact that you weren't paying attention to what you were doing means that you were acting like a behema anyway, which means that even though you may have not actually eaten the wrong meat, you may have not actually made the sin, The fact that you're not conscious of your actions already means that you're acting like an animal. So here we see, Rabotai Yekarim, already from the first couple of verses in this parasha, there's an endless amount of lessons for life. If you don't give yourself rules that to comply with, you're going to be a very, very difficult person to deal with. It's going to be very difficult for you to maintain any relationship with success over the long run. It's going to be very difficult for you to enjoy life. Why? Because rules are necessary. On the other hand, if you give yourself man-made rules, it could even be worse. Why? Because the man-made rules, they change. They change with the times, they change with the attitudes, they change with the community. They're unfortunately not something that's stable. Today he likes this, the next week he likes that. One day the scientist says this, the next week he says something else. And this is the reason why HaKadosh Baruch Hu is telling us, V'yigita bo yomam v'layla, that you got to learn Torah day and night. This is what he tells Yeshua ben Nun. You have to learn Torah. You have to learn Torah day and night. Why? Because these are the rules of God. God's rules do not change. No matter what the idol-worshipping Christians or the Muslims say, God's rules do not change. He gave us the rules. That's what they are. So what we have here, Rabotai Karim, is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is telling us, it's not a matter of the Torah being good for you. You need the Torah. It's not a matter of the Torah being good for life. It is life. But unfortunately, a person that does not learn Torah is not going to believe that. He's not going to believe that the Torah is life. He's not going to believe that he needs Torah. It may be nice, it may be wise, it may be intellectually stimulating, it may even have some good advice. But I need it? Come on, now you're exaggerating, Rabbi. And that's why the Torah itself gives us endless amount of lessons to remind us of the things that we need to know even before we believe them. Now, at the end of the parasha, we see that there's all types of sin offerings, there's all types of sacrifices that have to be brought. And one example of a sacrifice is that's brought at the end of the parasha is when someone cheated in business. Now, this is relevant to everyone. Anyone that works, anyone that transacts business, anyone that buys, anyone that sells. In so many words, if you're breathing, this is relevant to you. Why? Because Chazal teaches us that while not everyone is going to make some of the bigger sins like violating Shabbat or idol worship, almost everyone is caught on stealing. Why? Because of the way they conduct their business. Because of the way people conduct their business, they cheat, they manipulate, they say one thing but really it's something else because they figure, he's rich, he can afford it. Like just because someone's rich, then somehow gives you permission to steal from him. Or just because someone is not knowledgeable, that means you have some type of permission to cheat him. So the problem is that when people have man-made rules, needless to say, their own set of rules that they create themselves, they are bound to be cheaters. They're bound to be liars. They're bound to be people that suffer tremendously in their life from their own actions. Because even if they make a fortune of money from their cheating and their lying, that money will never have God's blessing, which means that the money will go to a bunch of different things that you don't want to spend the money on. So yes, you may have 10 different stores making you $500,000 a month each, but you'll end up seeing that all of that money, more or less, goes to a bunch of places you don't want to spend money on. You're spending money on lawyers because you're being sued. You're spending money on doctors because you're sick. You're spending money on fertility because your wife simply can't give birth to any child, even though she's young and healthy and you have no idea why she can't give birth. You're spending money on psychiatrists because you're depressed, but you don't know why. You're spending money on all types of things, and in reality, it looks like you're rich because you have a few toys. But if we go deep down inside to see what's going on in that kishke of yours, we find misery. we find unhappiness, we find depression, we find someone that wishes they weren't even born. Why? Because you're missing that blessing. All the money in the world is not going to help you. All the money in the world is not going to help you. And this, Rabotai Karim, is one of the things that brings that, aside from desecrating God's word, violating Shabbat, wasting seed, all the common things that we've mentioned many times over the years. One of the primary things that brings a curse to life, and actually a curse to all of Am Yisrael, is when Jews deal with business dishonestly and they don't have blessing. Now, here Chazal tell us that when somebody cheats God in business, meaning they take money from the Bet HaMikdash. They found some golden cup. They like the golden cup. They take it for themselves. Now, they don't sell it. They don't use it. They just put it on the shelf as a memorabilia. God is willing to not punish the person so long as he doesn't use it. If he uses it like a Achashverosh, use the garments, the 8 garments of the Kohen Gadol, or like Nebuchadnezzar or Belshazzar, all of these Reshaim use the tools of the Bet HaMikdash and they got punished for it at one point or another. One of the reasons why Vashti is killed off right at the beginning of Megillat Esther is because she wore the garments of the Kohen Gadol. She wore the Choshen while making, without any clothes under it, of course, because she was like a zonah. And she made, unfortunately, the Jewish girls work on Shabbat without clothes at all. So that was one of the reasons why she got punished with tzarat, the skin disease. Also, the tail came out of her and horn. And that's why she wasn't willing to go to Achashverosh when he called her. It wasn't because she was suddenly embarrassed and shy for people looking at her. No, she walked around as if, God just created her. Like Chava was just created. But obviously this is a woman that was a disgusting woman. But she said that she's not going to Achashverosh because she got the punishment of a lifetime, which is the skin disease and the horn in the tail for desecrating God's word and also God's children. But more than anything else, if a person takes one of the things from the Bet HaMikdash, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is willing to, in essence, not punish him. If he uses it, punishment comes. But it's not the same if a Jew steals from somebody else. If a Jew steals from somebody else, whether it's stealing from them outright by taking some from them when they're not looking, or cheating them in business, dishonesty, and things of that nature, the Torah tells us that the person's sins are considered treacherous to God. They're considered an abomination. Why? Because how is this any different? Because HaKadosh Baruch Hu is saying that when we go against each other, we cheat other people, we're not just going against that person. We're going against the ultimate purpose of the entire Torah. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu considers a person that cheats in business as the most hateful person who denies God. Because once a person denies the authority of the lawgiver, where he's not following the mitzvot, he can easily violate all of the norms of morality as well. And this is the reason why there is no such thing as an honest atheist. There's no such thing as someone that is honest, but also doesn't believe and follow God. There's no such thing. It's impossible. Once you deny God, you're certainly going to do even worse to people. But it's the same thing otherwise. Once you go against people, it's only a matter of time before you go against God. Now, the only way that a person can truly overcome these difficulties of the enticement of money, to cheat, the enticement of immorality, to cheat, the enticement of all of the sins, is by learning Torah. Now, learning Torah, most people don't understand the obligation. Most people do not understand the obligation of learning Torah, and they do it when they get a chance, or with an attitude that is, when I get a chance, I will learn. When I get a chance. Now, during PURIM, we have an unusual connection between the holiday and the rest of the Torah, where we have several mitzvot that we're obligated to do. Megillat Esther, reading the Megillah, as I said, at night and then during the day. In most places in the world, you have to read it on the 14th, which this year comes out on Motzei Shabbat. You're not allowed to read it during Shabbat. Then you have to read it again during the morning. And then in walled cities, you read it the following day. But there is an exception in questionable places where it's not sure if these places either had a choma, a wall, at the time of Yeshua ben Nun, or whether this is the particular place that the Torah is referring to or not. And in those particular places, which interestingly enough, one of them is Gaza, you are actually supposed to read it on 2 days, on the 14th and on the 15th. Now, Rabbi Yitzchak Yosef paskin that because obviously there's a war going on right now and reading at night is obviously dangerous for the soldiers, then they all have to read it only on Motzei Shabbat and during the morning and not the following day, not take the risk twice. But the point being is that under normal circumstances, it would actually be 2 days for that city and then several other places around the world in Israel. Now, aside from Megillah, we also have to do Mishloach Manot. We have to, show unity by sending a meal to our friends, people we care about. Each man has to send at least 2 meals to 2 different people, 1 to each person. And each woman has to send to at least 2 women. Women should not send to men. Men should not send to women. It's not appropriate. Unless you're sending it to your mother or your father or your brothers. But it's supposed to be a meal where meaning it has to be at least a cake of some kind or some type of mezonot and a drink. Of course, if you can make a meal, you can make challah, something like that. Of course, the more the better. But the point being is that it's supposed to be a meal and not just a box of candy. Candy is good, but it's not a meal. Unless you're 5 years old. Now, the amount of money that people spend on Mishloach Manot is usually very generous, and we enjoy Mishloach Manot very much and spend a fortune on them as well. But it's very important for a person to know that whatever you spend on Mishloach Manot, it should definitely not be as much as you spend on helping the poor. And the MATANOT LaEvyonim, helping the poor during PURIM, is very, very critical. So much so that anyone that comes to you and with an open hand, meaning asking for tzedakah, you give them. You give them, whoever they are, religious, not religious, young, old, they come to you. On this day, you give them. Now, of course, you can give based on your own what you have. If you're wealthy, you give more. If you're not so wealthy, you give less, but give. Nonetheless, give. We also have the mitzvah of saying the bracha, adding the Al HaNisim to the Birkat HaMazon, to our prayers. We have also the Seudah on PURIM itself, which is during the day. The Seudah needs to be with meat and wine. Don't have one of these veggie seudot or vegan seudot. It has to be with meat. Of course, kosher meat, everything kosher. And it's a prohibition to be sad, to be fasting, to do a eulogy of some kind. Not allowed to do that on the day. Now, back to our subject at hand as far as Why is Yeshua ben Nun really connected to all of this? The Gemara in Masechet Megillah, in the first daf Bet, Amud Aleph, says that in the cities that were not walled at the time of Yeshua ben Nun, who was the disciple of Moshe Rabbeinu, Purim is celebrated on the 14th of Adar, and in the cities that were walled at the time of Yeshua ben Nun's, they celebrate Purim on the 15th. Now, one of the reasons that Chazal, like the Ran and other Chachamim, use as the reason why the walled cities celebrate the following day is because, if you remember at the end of the Megillah, the salvation came in twofold. After Haman was killed, his sons were hung, of course, we were able to fight against all of those people that wanted to kill the Jews. They were supposed to kill the Jews in one day. We were able to go defend ourselves and fight them. And after we finished fighting them and killing them during the first day, Esther comes to Achashverosh and asks if he would allow them to do it for another day, meaning that it wasn't finished. So Chazal says that during inside the cities that were not walled, they already finished all business as far as killing their enemies already on the first day, on the 14th. But in the walled cities, they need a little bit more time to get in there, to find everybody, all of these enemies, all of these Nazis. We need a little bit more time. So that was the second day. Now, fine that we have walled cities for that reason, but what's the connection to Yeshua ben Nun? What's the connection to Yeshua ben Nun? Chazal says, well, Yeshua ben Nun is the one that came to Eretz Yisrael with Am Yisrael and went and fought against 31 nations. There were 31 different nations living, Canaanite nations that were living in Eretz Yisrael, and he went to war against 31 different nations. 31 different legions, armies. Huge wars. Yeshua ben Nun was a hero, unlike anything we could possibly imagine. So he deserves some respect. Fine, but why on Purim? Why not, I don't know, make a special holiday? Yeshua ben Nun Day. Why not mention him on, during some other Sukkot, or Shavuot, or some other time? Why Purim? Yes, he conquered the land of Israel. Fine. But the whole miracle of Purim was hundreds of years later. So anyone that looks at the beginning of the book of Joshua, which is the first book of the Tanakh after the 5 books of Moses, you'll see that Yeshua ben Nun goes to war. But during the war, one of the many wars, Yeshua ben Nun had some battle, they fought, there's blood, there's people, Baruch Hashem, were winning. Yeshua ben Nun is in his camp. It's later on in the day, and all of a sudden, he raises his head and he sees a man with a sword out. And this was no ordinary man. And he asks the man, "Are you with us, or have you come to kill us?" And the man says, "I am not a human being. I am from the army of God." Okay. "Are you here to kill us? To fight with us?" He says, "I'm here in the name of the Torah." why aren't you studying Torah? Now, it's not like Yeshua ben Nun was playing video games. It's not like Yeshua ben Nun was, exercising or playing with his kids. He had a war after a war to manage. But the angel comes and says to him that I'm the angel in the army of God, and I came here because why isn't there a Shiur Torah? Instead of continuing this dialogue, Chachamim tell us the Yeshua ben Nun on the spot stopped everything that he was doing and went into the depth of halachic study. This is not like a Musar or Emunah Shiur or just a Shiur about the weekly parasha. Not that there's anything wrong with them, but we're talking about the deepest level of Torah study, highest level of Torah study is the depths of halacha. And Yeshua ben Nun instantly went in there. Why? Because Yeshua ben Nun knew that there is a mitzvah. Is a mitzvah that we are never allowed to abandon the Torah under any condition. And the Rambam paskins this the halacha, telling us that whether you are sick or old or young or busy or working or poor or rich or married, and everything in your life needs your attention, wants your attention, needs your time, wants your time. Your wife wants your time. She wants to go to the mall. She wants to talk about the kids. She wants to talk about what to cook for Shabbat. She wants to talk about whether she's fat, or whether she's skinny, or whether we're going to have another kid, or whether this, or whether that. And then after you finish with her, the kids need your time. And they want Abba to play. And they want Abba to help them with the homework. And they want Abba to go around and, walk around the neighborhood. And they want this, and they want that. And after you finish that, then the boss calls and needs you to work this weekend. And he needs you to work overtime. And he needs you to become more dedicated to work. And he needs you to produce more. And then after you finish with him, the customer calls. And the customer says, listen, if you don't start delivering better, I'm going to your competition. And I want you to do this. And I want you to do that. And before you know it, you're already sick to your stomach. And I don't feel good. And I don't want to do this. And I can't. And you're in the bathroom for 5 hours. And you're throwing up. And you can't even eat. And you can't even drink. And guess what? You still need to learn Torah. You still need to learn Torah. Yeshua ben Nun is telling us no matter what you're doing, even if you're in the middle of a war, the moment you're not killing somebody or being killed, there's a break, obligated to learn Torah. That moment, you're obligated to learn Torah. Now, Rabotai, there are a couple of times during the year where it's less Torah is being learned. On Purim and on Yom Kippurim. On Yom Kippurim, it's a day of atonement, one of the high holidays. The Jewish people spend the overwhelming majority of that day, the 25 hours or so, fasting, praying, doing tshuva. There's very little time, especially if you're Sephardi, for anything else. First night, pray for a few hours with the long vidui at the end to save some time for the following day so you could actually pray Musaf in time. So you do a big part of the prayer of the Tikkun already on the first night. Then you get a little bit of sleep. You start early in the day, especially in Eretz Yisrael. When we went there for the high holidays, we already started praying at 5 o'clock in the morning. And it wasn't because we wanted to finish by 6 or 7 or 8. Prayed for hours. But you start early in the day. I know in other places around the world, they don't necessarily start that early. Usually they start even later, start at 9 or 8:30 or 8. But some of the kehilot that are very, very committed do the same thing as Eretz Yisrael, where they start 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning. And once you finish, 5, 6, 7 hours later, there's a short break of maybe an hour or two, even 3, depending on, again, on how fast people pray and so on, what time you started. Usually there's about 2-hour break. During that 2 hours, most people rest. And then you go back to prayer for another 5 hours. So there's very little time. So therefore, there's less Torah being learned during that day. For obvious reasons. It's not like you're hanging out playing video games. You're praying. The other day that there's less Torah being learned is on Purim. Why? Because you have in the morning, you have to read the Megillah. And then on top of that, you have to do the Mishloach Manot. Mishloach Manot have to be done on during the day, not at night. Then you have to make sure that you're helping the poor on that day. So anyone that contributes to our campaign, we're obviously going to have everything that we're doing on the days of Purim, and not just ahead of time. We have to make sure that the 1,000 people that are learning are going to be learning on the days of Purim. And we're having some people in Yerushalayim, some people in Netanya, in a few different places, because there's a couple of days to cover ground for everyone that's contributing, regardless of where you live. But point being is that after you do the Megillah, after you help the poor, after you do the Mishloach Manot, then you have the Mishteh. You have the feast. You have a good time, drink a little bit, eat a little bit, have fun with the kids, maybe have some activities, all types of things. And before you know it, you have to go pray Mincha. So there's less Torah usually learned by people during Purim. Many times people don't learn at all. Hence the reason why Yeshua ben Nun is connected to this holiday, even though he preceded Purim by hundreds of years. Yeshua ben Nun conquered Eretz Yisrael, not because he was the greatest warrior in history, not because he was the smartest man in history, not because he was the richest man in history, not because of any other reason other than the fact that Yeshua ben Nun made sure to commit himself and Am Yisrael to the Torah. And he fulfilled the obligation of learning Torah day and night despite the battle. And the moment he got even the message of a rebuke, he didn't require a further discussion. He didn't require anyone to convince him. On the spot, he was already able to go into the depths of halacha, which means that he was learning Torah already at other times, and therefore he was able to go and continue what he was already doing. It's just that there was a break, which logically made sense, but spiritually was forbidden. And the same concept goes for us. We have to understand that even though Purim and the rest of the year are full of excuses of why we're not going to have time to learn Torah, we have to make sure that we find the time to learn Torah. And when we're not learning Torah, we have to make sure that our spiritual meter is still going. Someone is learning Torah on our behalf. Someone is doing tshuva on our behalf. How do we do that? If you're not learning Torah, that means that you're either sleeping or you're working. Or you're spending some time with family. It's not that much options outside from that. Even during those few times, working, sleeping, family, you have to make sure that that spiritual meter is going. How? By making sure that part of the money that you're making from the business deals that you're doing, from the real estate investments that you're doing, from the entrepreneurship that you're doing, from the job for the local government office that you're doing, whatever it is that you're doing, you take part of that money and you invest it into helping people learn Torah, into helping people do tshuva. Why? Because once you take at least the maaser, the 10% that you have, and you invest it into the Torah, that means that you are taking that time that you worked for, and you're not looking to collect the money to go buy yourself more food and become fatter, to go buy yourself more toys that you can't even fit in your house, you're looking to use the money that Hashem gave you to increase Torah in the world. Because even though you yourself can't learn during that time, you still have an obligation to learn, and therefore you do it. Now, sometimes the most extraordinary examples are what's necessary for people to understand, or for the message to really hit home. Now, many times when you tell people, invest into kiruv, invest into learning Torah, into kollel, either people give just blindly to whoever, whenever, without really putting too much thought into it, like they would put into a real estate investment or a stock investment or a business investment of some kind. Almost like it's a burden, like they're paying a bill. Or they're going to give, but not as much as they give for something that is more close to their heart, such as helping poor people. Now, I'm here to tell you that even for those that like to help poor people more than they like to publicize Torah, there's an example that will show you that even that, if we're not investing in Torah, we won't have the merit and the ability and the know-how to invest properly, even to help poor people. What's the example? Right now, everyone that's Jewish is aware of the fact that we are in a war. Not only in a war in Gaza, but different parts of the Middle East, different parts of the world, some on the battlefield, some on the technological end, some on the political end. There's a war against Am Yisrael. Anti-Semitism is openly acceptable everywhere across the board. Now, there's a war. But the part of the war that hurts everyone, that still has a Jewish heart, or is close to the Jewish people, is the hostages. The hostages that the Ishmaelim, Yimach Shemam V'Zichram, took, raped, murdered, and whoever's still left, the hostages they still have. Everyone thinks about the hostages and it breaks their heart. If I told you, what if I can find a way to get Mishloach Manot of PURIM to each one of the hostages in Gaza, over there? Which one of you is going to sign up? Is there a Jewish person that will not sign up? Is there a Jewish person that's not going to go all out on this Mishloach Manot? Now, you're not going to send a Mishloach Manot with a couple of chocolates and a little root beer. No! You're going to send them a whole barbecue machine with the steaks inside broiling. You're going to put some pita in there. You put hummus. You put matbucha. You put Sephardi food, Ashkenazi food. You're going to put Yemenite food. You're going to put every food under the sun, and you're going to make sure to give it in every variety of kashrut. Maybe it's Edat Charidit. Maybe it's matbuch. Maybe it's OU, whatever it is. You're going to make sure that the kashrut is not a problem. The type of food, not a problem. What, he has celiac maybe? We'll give him gluten-free. What, he likes the meat only? We'll give him every type of meat. He likes, what does he like? He likes the stuff that's fattening. We'll give him some candy. We'll give him some chocolates. We'll give him some cheese. We'll give him some this. We'll give him some that. Each Mishloach Manot is going to be an investment and a half. If it costs you less than $1,500 a person, I'd be surprised. And that's just for one, that's just for you. Imagine, you have to do two of them. $3,000, Rabbi, no problem. You're going to get to the hospital? No problem. Can I give more than two, Rabbi? I said, fine, you give more than two, but not too much. Oh, can I give 10? What, not 10? I just, 2. $10 10, Rabbi, can you do me a favor? I want 10 hostages. I want to give my Mishloach Manot $1,500 at a clip for 10 people. Can I do it? All right, fine. Before you know it, he's got 1,000 Mishloach Manot. Oh, I told you 10 maximum. He goes, no, 10 for me, but I brought my friends. What, your friends also want to give Mishloach Manot? Yeah. What, they do the same thing? No, they did a little bit more. Each one, $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 Mishloach Manot. Before you know it, you raised $100 million in Mishloach Manot. Why? It's going to the hostages. It's going to the hostages, Ribono Shel Olam. Well, you don't want them to have Mishloach Manot, Rabbi? Get them you got the connections. Go to Gaza, right? You can give them the Mishloach Manot. Before you know it, you raised $1 million, $2 million, $5 million, $500 million to go to the hostages. To give Mishloach Manot. Why? You want to do mitzvah. Right? You want to do mitzvah. Now let me ask you a question. The hostages, you're right. If you could help them, you should help them. If you could send a Mishloach Manot, you should send Mishloach Manot. But is the hostage, whoever it is, whether it's that little cute baby, may Hashem protect him, or it's the mother, or it's the guy that's sitting next to him, or it's somebody else's daughter, or somebody else's son, or somebody else's father, are any of them better than the Jewish people that are not hostages right now? But they're not hostages of Gaza, but they're hostages of poverty, where they don't have food, they don't have money to even have a celebration on Chanukah. They don't have money to celebrate Pesach. They don't have money to celebrate Shavuot. And needless to say, they don't have money to celebrate Purim right now. They don't have money. They're not hostages of the Ishmaelim. They're hostages of our stinginess and our selective giving. We're going to give things that are close to our heart. When you give to things that are close to your heart, you're giving things that are sometimes far from a Kadosh Baruch Hu's desire. There are literally endless amount of people that we can help right now in Eretz Yisrael. We've gone far above and beyond year after year to help the poor in Eretz Yisrael, not only during the holidays and before the holidays, but during the entire year. Every day there's a new story. Every day somebody else is getting married, they don't have money to pay for the wedding. Every day somebody's having a baby and they need to pay for basic things. Every day somebody needs diapers. Every day somebody needs food for their 5 kids and the husband died or the husband left or something happened. Every day there's a new story. And every day we try to do whatever we can. Yeah, just put it on the card. Put it on the card. Rabbi, the card is getting tired already. Yeah, just put it on the card. You want to do a campaign? No time for campaign. Just help these poor people. What are you going to do? There's literally not enough time in the day to help all the people that we could possibly help. But unfortunately, when people make decisions based on their emotions instead of based on what the Torah obligates us to do, we make the wrong decisions. Now, I agree with you. If I had the opportunity to send a Mishloach Manot to each one of the hostages, I'll easily send a $1,500 Mishloach Manot to them. But you know what that means also? That when I help the poor people, I have to give nothing less than $1,500. Nothing less than $3,000. Nothing less than whatever it is I would do to something that pinches my heart. So when I see people send me messages and say, Rabbi, I donated to the campaign, and they send me a screenshot of what they donated, it makes me happy they donate. Unless I know them a little more, and I know that this guy makes $100,000 a year. This girl makes $250,000 a year. This guy makes $500,000 a year. This person lives in a $2 million house. And they show me some receipt of some $50 donation or $100 or $200. And I say to myself, would they give the same amount if I told them, let's give it to the hostages? I bet you not. Now, they're not bad people, because obviously if they're giving, they're decent people. You're all decent people. We're all decent people if we're giving, if we're learning. We're all decent people. We're not trying to do anything bad. But the problem is that we're ignorant of the Torah. We're clueless of the Torah. And therefore, many times we make decisions based on emotions and not based on what the Torah obligates us. That's why, Rabotai, when Yeshua ben Nun heard that the Malach is there in the name of the Torah because there's no Torah being learned right there and then, he didn't need any further explanation. Immediately he went inside to the depths of the Torah. And that's why Yeshua ben Nun had the blessing to conquer 31 different nations. That's why Yeshua ben Nun had to receive the kavod, the honor of having this entire holiday of PURIM decided based on his time, what he saw, what he did. If there was a walled city, the holiday's on this day. If it's not a walled city at the time of Yeshua ben Nun, it's on a different day. Why? Because the only reason why HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us the land of Israel is because of the Torah. Is because of the dedication of the Torah. Not just picking up a Sefer Torah and kissing it, but rather listening and living by the words inside it. Not just saying we know the story of the written Torah, but living by the rules and the depth of the oral Torah. When a person simply decides to dedicate themselves to the Torah, that means emotions, garbage. HaKadosh Baruch Hu's will, that's what's going to make my decisions. With that, Rabotai Karim, we will be able to not only celebrate PURIM the way it's supposed to be celebrated, with Torah, with mitzvot, with chesed, but we're going to do it in a measure that HaKadosh Baruch Hu blessed us on that day and the rest of the year. Because that's what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants from us. We need to make sure we use every tool that he gives us in order to serve him, and not just simply serve ourselves and somehow fit HaKadosh Baruch Hu into our life and our world. After we know this, after we live like this, we'll be able to literally destroy Amalek. And we'll finish off with a story that may not necessarily give us so much details about the chesed, but will tell us the details of the power of Torah when someone has it. About 10 years ago, a story was publicized where literally the power of Torah came to life. There was a Jewish man that religious, learns Torah, follows mitzvot, good guy, driving one day in America. And he's driving, and as he gets to some street, last second, he sees in front of him some old man ran into the street, ignoring the lights, ignoring the traffic, ignoring everything else, and it was not enough time for him to stop the car, and he hit the old man and killed him. Of course, the Jewish guy is not happy about the situation. He's very, very upset. He killed an old man, but it's even scary because with that there being a death, police arrive, court cases, charges. After they review the footage from the cameras everywhere, they see that really the driver, the Jewish driver, was not at fault. The old man was irresponsible and just literally ran into the street in the last minute, not giving the driver even enough time to stop, and it was really an accident. So the Jewish man is released from this, but he still feels horrible, because after all, a Jewish neshama doesn't want to kill anybody. He feels bad about it. He says he learns in the Torah that HaKadosh Baruch Hu megalgel zchut al yedei zakai v'chova al yedei chayav. HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives those that have merit. He gives those that have merit opportunities to earn even more merit. And those that have sins, opportunities to create more sins, more problems. So why did Hashem give me this tragedy? What sin did I make? He said, I learned Torah, I commit myself to Torah, I follow the mitzvot. Why did Hashem have me as the tool to kill this old man? And it bothered him to no end. Where do you go when something bothers you to no end? You go to the world of Torah. And he went to the Sarah Torah. He went to Rav Chaim Kanievsky, alav hashalom. Rav Chaim Kanievsky, aside from being literally a giant in Torah, he was also known for giving very, very short and minimal answers. Blessings were bua bua. Bracha v'atzlacha, bracha v'atzlacha. Meaning the acronym of the words he would use. He would give very short answers. When this man came to see Rav Chaim Kanievsky, he tells him, Rabbi, this happened to me. I learned Torah, I do mitzvot, I do all these different things. I don't understand why this happened to me. I killed this old man. Now, even though he's a goy, still, why do I have to kill somebody? Why is Hashem using me to kill somebody? What did I do? Rav Chaim Kanievsky thinks for a second and looks at him and he says, Amalek. What? Me? No, I keep Torah. I go, no. Amalek, meaning that the man that he killed, the old man that he killed, was Amalek, which there's a mitzvah. If you know who Amalek is, it's a mitzvah to kill them. We have a masoret that the Nazis were Amalek. Also, the Abarbanel says that when Edom marries Ishmael, they also create Amalek. There's all types of Amalek out there. The main common denominator among Amalek is not just anti-Semitism, but anti-Torah. But how would you know that this old man in America is Amalek? Now, you don't ask these types of questions to Rav Chaim Kanievsky. You just simply accept the answer, they thank you very much, and go on your life. But this Jewish man, it just bothered him. Why did the Rav, the Sarah Torah, he doesn't say anything for no reason. He's not going to say something to pacify me. I know that what he's saying obviously has meaning, but why? Why Amalek? Why not say measure for measure, reward and punishment, whatever it is? Like, why, out of all the answers in the world, he says to me that the reason why I killed this guy is because he's Amalek, but it was an accident. Why should I be used to kill Amalek? And it bothered this man to no end. Now, the old man that he killed didn't have a wife or kids and lived in some house. And the Jewish guy found out the house and he decided to go there. Nobody's obviously in the house. And he says, I have to see who this guy is. I want to learn who he is. He decided to break into the house. Snuck into the house, maybe through a window or something, and started looking at the house. And he sees regular house, everything is very neat, very proper, very clean. Looks, some basic stuff, nothing out of the ordinary. Kitchen, living room, all basic stuff. Goes to the bedroom, and he sees there's some things that are normal in the bedroom, and then there's some boxes under the bed. So he decides, let's just look at some of these boxes. Maybe we'll find some things that are relevant to this picture to get to know who this man that I killed is. And And he opens the boxes. And he opens the boxes. Do you know what happens after he opens the boxes? Well, I'm going to tell you what happens after he opens the boxes. And once I tell you what happens after he opens the boxes, you're going to think that you already know the whole story. And you're going to think, wow, amazing. Rav Chaim Kanievsky is amazing. But no. You still don't know the whole story. Because even after I tell you what happens after he opens the boxes, you have to stay tuned to see what actually happens after he opens the boxes. He opens the boxes, Rabotai Yekarim. He opens the boxes. And he sees pictures inside the boxes. But those pictures were not from last week or last month or even last year. Those pictures were from the Holocaust. Those pictures were from the Nazi army, Imach Shimam Vezichram. Those pictures were inside the Holocaust, inside the concentration camp. Those pictures showed that this old man, Imach Shimo Vezichro, was a Nazi murderer inside the Holocaust, that escaped the Holocaust, came to America and lived in peace. And inside these pictures you see this Nazi, this Amalek, inside these pictures, posing, laughing, while there's dead Jews everywhere. And as this Jew is flipping through the pictures, he can't believe it. Rav Chaim Kanievsky was right. He was right. This guy is Amalek. But I still need to know, why did HaKadosh Baruch Hu use me to kill Amalek? Why did HaKadosh Baruch Hu use me to kill Amalek? On Shabbat we have to read Parashat Zachor, which is to remember Amalek, our ultimate enemy. Why did HaKadosh Baruch Hu use me to kill Amalek, this Nazi? He sees through the pictures, another picture, and more dead Jews, and more smiling Nazis. And this man is in every one of the pictures. And he goes through one after another until he gets to a picture that shocks him and is going to shock you. In the picture, he sees his grandfather. His grandfather is kneeling there on his knees with a gun to its head. The holder of the gun is the old man that he killed. And this was the last picture of his grandfather before he got murdered by that same old man that he killed. HaKadosh Baruch Hu made sure that this Jew not only learns Torah, lives Torah, but sees the Torah and the measure for measure, and used him to take revenge against Amalek, but not just any Amalek, the very same Amalek that killed and murdered in cold blood his grandfather, and was proud of it to such an extent that he even kept a picture of it. Rabotai Yekarim, Amalek is alive and well. But sometimes Amalek comes in physical form, like the Nazis, like the Ishmaelim that murdered us on the 7th of October. But sometimes Amalek is inside our heart and is hiding in there with all types of heretical thoughts, all types of foolishness, all types of anti-Torah and anti-God beliefs. But it's so subtle that we don't even realize that it's there. During these next couple of days, we have to fulfill all of these mitzvot. But on top of everything else, we have to use this time to destroy Amalek, the one that's in our heart, the one that tells us not to listen to Da'at Torah, the one that tells us the opposite of what the will of Hashem, the one that tells us to follow our emotions, to follow what we see, to follow what we hear, to follow what HaKadosh Baruch Hu says not to do, as we read in Shema Yisrael every single day, multiple times a day. Don't follow what your eyes and heart told you. Follow the Torah. If you follow the Torah, you'll be following the will of Hashem. With that being said, Rabotai, you, BeEzrat HaShem, will give us some questions. And Kadosh Baruch Hu will give us the answers. See, I'll start off with some people from Facebook, and then we'll go to TikTok and YouTube. Let's see, what do we got? Let's see. Spread, okay. Nice comments, nice blessings, but I'm looking for questions. Okay, let's look. Maybe we'll find something here. Second. Here we go. Is Bilam the name or title of, is Bilshan? Is Bilshan the name or title of Mordechai? Not to my knowledge. Do I have to choose definitively what Rivka's age was via the interpretation? Where there's a Masoret, there is a tradition of her being 3 years old, 6 years old. I mean, as long as it's within one of those options that the sages have told us, you're fine. But you can't just simply decide that she was 25 years old and in 6 feet 5 height in inches. You can't just decide what it is. It has to be something that agrees with our tradition. Rabbi, why do some Jews wear the talit katan on the outside of their shirt while some wear it on the inside and some on the outside? So that's simply custom and comfort. So there is a importance of wearing tzitzit, which talit katan like this is a mitzvah from the Torah. Anytime you wear a four-cornered garment, you have to wear, as a man, you have to wear a tzitzit. Now, there's no obligation to have it on the inside or on the outside. It's whatever you prefer. Some customs were, preferred it to be on the outside, like I have it right now. But some decided that they prefer it to be on the inside. Now, in regards to the customs, again, it was, there's different reasons for it. One of the reasons that the ones that are wearing it on the inside is because the Arizal said that when you have the tzitzit on the outside, it could be enticing the mezikim, the negative spirits that are out there, and which, if you're not holy enough, can create damage, meaning they could attack you. So it's better to have the tzitzit on the inside. So that's why those that wear it on the inside, they're following that custom, that teaching of the Arizal. On the other hand, there are others that are saying, listen, even though there are mezikim, and even though the mezikim could be dangerous, if you're wearing tzitzit, it'll protect you, and it's important. It's more important for you to be visually Jewish, meaning to show your Judaism and the pride that you have of Judaism on the exterior, than it is for you to be concerned about mezikim, and therefore you should wear, your Jewish garments in such a fashion that you're noticeably Jewish, by your tzitzit, by the way you look. That's why, for example, the first time in the entire Tanakh that the word Yehudi, Jew, appears is in Megillat Esther. And that Yehudi is Mordechai Yehudi. Mordechai was the Jew. Why is, they say, is Mordechai Yehudi? Why Mordechai Yehudi? Why didn't they just say Mordechai? Obviously, we would know he was a Jew. Because Mordechai was visually Jewish from far away because he had long and big, fat peot, just like, I have, but magnified much, much more, that even from far away, you were able to see that this is a Jew that's coming. There's no way that this guy is not Jewish, because obviously, especially in those times, it was very difficult to determine who's Jewish based on clothing, because the clothing, everybody had similar clothing. They had the tarbush, they had the kaftan, they had, similar clothing. So how can you tell this is a Jew and this is an Arab, this is a Persian, this is how would you know? The way that was Mordechai and the Jews showed themselves as Jews was their pelt. That's why these are called also simanim, signs. So Mordechai the Jew, first time in the Torah that the word Jew appears is in Megillat Esther. So as far as the back to the tzitzit question, those that are in the tradition of wearing the tzitzit on the outside say that, listen, wearing it on the outside, being visibly Jewish, is a very, very important mitzvah in itself. It's not only showing your Jewish pride, you're showing that your observance of the Torah, of the mitzvot, but also it shows your fear of heaven and not fear of man. Many times people, they say that they're not wearing a kippah or they're not visually Jewish because they're afraid of anti-Semitism. This is complete nonsense of the Yetzer Hara. Rabbi Ovadia one time came to a community of Syrian Jews, and he noticed that many of the Jews in the Syrian community were Torah observant, but many of them were not wearing a kippah. We're not wearing a kippah. He said, actually, this is one of the stories that Rabbi Yitzchak Yosef said recently in his shiur. He said that, and he was there on a trip, one of the people in the community that would actually teach Gemara every day, Daf Yomi. He would teach Gemara, serious Gemara. It was Talmidie Chacham. But then the Rav saw him later on that week that he was in the community. He saw the guy walking around without bald head, no kippah. He said, hey, how could it be? And he said to the Rabbi, listen, I'm scared of anti-Semitism. That's why he didn't wear a kippah. This, obviously, the Rabbi didn't accept it. He said, at least wear a hat, wear a casket, wear something. Point being is that if you're not covering your head as a Jew, it's not because you're afraid of anti-Semitism. It's because you're falling for the trap of the Satan, the Yetzer Hara, that's making you scared of man instead of making you scared of Hashem. Because the whole point of wearing a kippah is symbolic of your fear of God. That's what the wearing a kippah is. It's symbolic of your fear of God. You don't wear a kippah, that's because you're not afraid of God. You're afraid of somebody else more than God. And that's a problem. That's a very serious problem. So it's important for a Jew to be visually Jewish, you can see that they're Jewish. Now, there's no obligation for you to wear the Hasidic garment or the tzitzit outside or anything like that. You can wear it on the inside. You could wear a kippah, or you could wear a hat. But the point is to do something. You don't have to wear a beard. You don't have to have a beard. But certainly, that doesn't mean that you're allowed to shave your face with a knife. The point being is that a person needs to know that their Judaism should not be separate from their life in any way. Should not be separate from your life in any way. In fact, it should be something that you're proud of, that you're taking with you. Now you're going to say, wait, but what about if some Nazi kills me because I look Jewish or robs me? If you truly believe in the Torah, you'll know that the Gemara in Masechet Chulin, page 7, says that even before you prick yourself in the finger with a needle, there has to be a judgment in Shamayim to determine whether you deserve it or not. Meaning that no one can help you or hurt you if it's not the will of Hashem. And therefore, you wearing a kippah or not wearing a kippah, wearing a tzitzit or not wearing a tzitzit, that is not the determining factor of whether anti-Semitism will hurt you or not, or someone will rob you or not. What's going to determine that is whether you have merits or obligations, whether you deserve to have the suffering or you don't deserve to have the suffering. And that's based on you following the Torah or ignoring the Torah. If you follow the Torah, then you don't have to worry about anyone helping you or hurting you, because everything that's happening to you is the will of Hashem. Everything that's happening to you is the will of Hashem. But if you don't follow the Torah, then of course you're going to disagree with what I say, you're going to disagree with the Torah, you're going to rationalize things, you're going to say, no, but you don't understand where I live, people are this, people are that. Listen, Habibi, I grew up in a place where my school was in the projects. I grew up in a place where gangsters were my classmates. Okay? I'm very, very familiar with danger. I'm very familiar with death. I'm very familiar with a lot of things that are not so rabbi-ish. I understand. I'm not delirious. I'm not oblivious. I'm very, very well familiar. I've had, Baruch Hashem, all types of people go in and out of my life, need some help, need some this, need some that. I help all types of people. I have some students that unfortunately their communication to me is only once every few months because they're in jail for different types of crimes that it's better not to hear. I have some people that have got out of jail, all types of wonderful people that we try to help in every way, and I've seen a lot. So for a second, don't think it's because I'm ignorant of the world. It's not. Simply said, the Torah tells us clearly, HaKadosh Baruch Hu runs the world. En od milvado, there's nothing else but Him. The moment we fear anything but Hashem, we are already veering towards the road of idol worship. Of idol worship. Anytime you fear anything but God, you're already on the path of idol worship. There's different levels of idol worship. The Gemara in Masechet Avodah Zarah says that Avraham Avinu had 400 segments to the tractate of Avodah Zarah, meaning there are different levels of Avodah Zarah. It's not so simple, it's just a statue. There's different levels of Avodah Zarah. And when a person fears God less, that already means they're on the road closer to idolatry and further from Hashem. They fear Hashem more, that means they're closer to Hashem and further from idolatry. So when a person says and justifies them not being visually Jewish to the extent where you literally can't tell whether they're Jewish or not Jewish, they're not wearing a kippah, they're not, they're not learning Torah, at least nothing to speak of that anybody would even recognize. The problem that they don't realize is that this answer that I'm providing, they don't have the spiritual tools to accept it. Why? Because you're living a life that's so far away from the Torah that none of what I say makes sense to you, because the way you calculate things is based on your perception of them, your emotional connection to them, your understanding of them with the tools you have. And the tools you have are the secular world. So you're seeing on the news, this Jewish guy got attacked, that Jewish guy got attacked, that synagogue got burned, that guy is a terrorist. You're seeing things based on the human perspective. And therefore, you're going to determine based on the human perspective that if you are less visually Jewish, that means that you are going to increase your safety. Just like people think that the more weapons they have in their house, the more safe they are. This is antithetical to the Torah, because that means that you're giving something else power above God. Above God. If a person is protected by God, that means that nobody in the world can hurt them. Nobody in the world can hurt them, even if they're inside Gaza. Even if somebody shoots directly at them. How many miracle stories have there been of people having shot, people being attacked, people having diseases, people having accidents, all types of miraculous things were simply said, HaKadosh Baruch Hu decided, today is not the day you're going to die. Even though the laws of nature, the laws of logic, the laws of science said you are going to die, but no, God said no. Endless amount of miracles have happened throughout history, and endless amount of miracles happen every single day. The moment we remove our understanding that everything is a miracle, whether the open miracles or the hidden miracles or even the things that we've gotten accustomed to, like blinking and seeing, the moment we remove ourselves from everything being a miracle, we little by little veer towards idolatry, towards things that are antithetical to the Torah. So if you are already on the Torah path and have humbled yourself to a certain extent to realize that not everything is going to make sense to you right away, but certainly it's the truth if it's coming from the Torah, then you will be able to learn more and more and get closer to Hashem. But if you're going to simply use your logic, it's going to be very difficult for you to live life of Torah. Now, I'm not saying that you should go inside a camp of terrorists and tell them, listen, I'm Jewish, but you're not going to touch me. No one says put yourself into open risk. Wearing a kippah does not increase your risk. Wearing a tzitzit does not increase your risk any more than wearing a hat, any more than going to certain neighborhoods, any more than anything else. The reality is that if you say that a kippah increases your risk, then put a hat. There are plenty of non-Jews that wear hats, so what's your justification of not wearing a hat? Now, if you say, okay, the tzitzit increases my risk, fine, so put the tzitzit inside. No one knows what's under your shirt. Why aren't you still wearing a tzitzit? What, just in case they decide to undress you? The point being is that a person needs to know that HaKadosh Baruch Hu knows the real reasons of why we do what we do and really what's behind it. Many times when a person is connected to Hashem, the more connected to Hashem they are, the more they are open about their Judaism, happy about their Judaism, proud about their Judaism, and confident about their Judaism. And no one in the world can scare them. No one in the world can scare them. The further a person is from the Torah itself, but they're close to, let's say, the superficial part of Judaism, such as the customs. They like PURIM, but not necessarily Yom Kippur. They like Chanukah, but they don't necessarily like Rosh Hashanah. They don't necessarily like Pesach. They like Chol HaMoed, but not Yom Tov. So the more people are, close to the customs, and the traditions, but not the laws, the more difficult it is going to be for them to feel the Torah, But as a person learns more and more Torah, they're going to realize that God is the one that rules the world and no one else. And there's nothing for you to be afraid of, not an army, not a battalion, not a terrorist group, not a governor, not a president, not a boss, not a customer, not anything. Only thing you need to be afraid of is HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Once you know that, life becomes much, much more pleasant. But Halakha also says not to put yourself in unnecessary danger. Like I just explained, wearing something on your head does not increase your danger. Even if you say that a kippah increases your danger, you could still wear a hat. Even if you say wearing a tzitzit increases your danger, you should still put it under your shirt. No one can see the tzitzit. Point being is that a person is fooling themselves if they're not wearing a tzitzit and something to cover their head because they think that increases their danger. Because there's other ways to do that without even that argument being valid. Can one also commemorate another person during the same time, during the same evening, whose yahrzeit will be 5 days later, knowing that there won't be 10 men present there? You can do mitzvot on the behalf of somebody you care about at any time, even if it's just you by yourself. You can give charity on their behalf, you can pray on their behalf, you can learn on their behalf. But certainly it's better if it's done where there's more than one person, where there's at least a minyan. But sometimes having a minyan is not possible for different reasons. But certainly you could do a mitzvah even without you being there. You could simply help do a mitzvah on behalf of that person. fear of Hashem is determined by wearing a kippah and showing the whole world that I'm Jewish. Yes, according to the Gemara, Masechet Shabbat, the fear of Hashem is symbolized by your kippah. It's not necessarily just because you have a kippah doesn't mean you fear Hashem, but it's symbolized by it. Just like if somebody walks around with a cross on their neck, or they're tattooed a cross, then they're symbolizing that they're not Jewish. They're symbolizing that they're representing Christianity. They believe in Yoshke. Somebody walks around with the garments or the traditions, cultures of Islam. You know that that's what they are. A kippah is symbolic of Judaism, but not just Judaism in general. Rather, the Gemara says the kippah is supposed to cover your entire head, because in essence you're saying that you know that Hashem is everywhere. Hashem is everywhere. He's overseeing everything. The more of your head that it covers, the more you're fulfilling the actual halacha, and because you're in essence saying that Hashem is omnipresent. Omnipresent. Rabbi, I traced my lineage back to King David. Congratulations. I just bought some tzitzit and kippah while I was thinking, Baruch Hashem, good for you. Where do you sell tefillin? Tefillin you can buy on our website, BeEzrat HaShem.org, BeEzrat HaShem.org. That's our website. Over there, there's a store. And make sure to pick the right tefillin. There is tefillin for Ashkenazim, tefillin for Sephardim, and there's tefillin of Rabbeinu Tam. So after you buy tefillin, also let us know, send us a message, let us know, or write in the notes over there whether you write with your right hand or with your left hand, because the tefillin are put in the opposite hand, and only order tefillin if you are Jewish. We're not allowed to sell tefillin or mezuzot to non-Jews, even if the non-Jew is very righteous and very generous and very wonderful. It's simply forbidden for us to sell it to non-Jews. That's what the Shulchan Aruch says. The same Torah that we're learning today is the Torah that tells us that we're not allowed to sell tefillin or mezuzot to non-Jews, even if they're wonderful. But again, they could benefit from other parts. They could help us with chesed. They could help us with other mitzvot. They could learn, musar with us. But again, it's important for you to know that if you order tefillin or mezuzah from a Jew, and let's say they don't ask you, or you fool them to make them think that you're Jewish, and therefore they sell it to you, you're actually making that Jew sin. You're making that Jew sin. They have an unintentional sin. And that's certainly a problem for them, and even a bigger problem for you, because you know that you're not allowed to do it. So, but if you're Jewish, certainly you can get a top-of-the-line tefillin from our website. We have, like I said, we have the Rashi tefillin. We have this for Sephardi and for Ashkenazi, right hand, left hand, and we also have Rabbeinu Tam. Rabbeinu Tam is extremely important for people that are married, Jews that are married, and want to elevate their level of holiness. Rabbi Ovadia was very, very particular about making sure that every married person in his community, in the Sephardic community, had Rabbeinu Tam. It's a higher level of Kedusha, even though we don't do a blessing on it. It's an absolute must for a married Jew to have Rabbeinu Tam. And you should at least study some Torah with it every day. Even if you're only studying Torah for 5-10 minutes after you pray, make sure that the Rabbeinu Tam tefillin are on your head. It'll help you tremendously. It'll help you tremendously. I have some Talmidim that are Talmidim of mine that are very receptive, and some of them are just completely like oblivious to the things that I say. I don't know how they call themselves my Talmidim, but it's amazing to me. Sometimes I see that certain Talmidim of mine are very, very particular about things they do, what they're supposed to do. They learn, they listen, they do everything, and then some of them they're like they just like to say that they listen, but in reality they don't listen. And sometimes they don't listen about Rabbeinu Tam Tefillin. Sometimes they don't listen about what to learn. Sometimes they don't listen about different really, really particular things that are a big deal. And it's very important for a person to have a rabbi that they trust, that their da'at Torah, which means that if the rabbi says it, you simply do it. Whether you agree, disagree is irrelevant. If you trust this rabbi, you have to listen to them. You don't have to make me a rabbi. I'm not looking for any more students, but you definitely need to make yourselves rabbis, that you trust everything that they say and you're going to do what they say. Why? Because that's what the Torah tells us. That's what the Torah tells us. That's what the Torah tells us that we must do. And when people start picking and choosing which advice, which teaching, which lesson of the rabbi they're going to listen to and which they won't, unfortunately, instead of fulfilling the words of the Torah that's said in the Gemara Masechet Rosh Hashanah, page 14, that the person that listens to the Torah is obviously righteous. Instead of that, it's a person that's wicked, where he's looking for the ones that fit his agenda, either the leniencies of Bet Shammai and the leniencies of Bet Hillel, or the stringencies of Bet Shammai and stringencies of Bet Hillel. Meaning, they only want to listen to extreme cases, and those two cases are unfortunately not the righteous people, even if they wear a kippah. So, if you're going to have a rabbi, you have to listen to what they say. If you're not going to listen to what they say, then you have to find a different rabbi. Why? Because without a rabbi, Rabotai, we're non-existent people. And that's one of the things that people simply don't understand. So Rav Ovadia made a very, very particular point to make sure that Am Yisrael wears talit, tefillin, and so on, but also Rabbeinu Tam Tefillin are a very, very big deal. So any of you that don't have it, you should get it. Whether you get it from me or not, I don't really care. It's up to you. But the point is, if you're a married man, get yourself a Rabbeinu Tam Tefillin. I have Jewish DNA because of my grandfather. Do you need to have Jewish mother in order to convert? No, in order to convert, you don't have to have any Jewish in your lineage. In order to convert, you just need to learn Torah, follow the Torah, make the necessary life changes, and go to a Orthodox Jewish Bet Din that will guide you until they convert you. But in order to be Jewish, either you have to do it through conversion, or if somebody has a Jewish mother. But we don't determine Judaism based on DNA. We determine Judaism based on the mother. If she's Jewish and it's provable that she's Jewish, then the children are Jewish. So, Rabbi, can you tell us about the upcoming PURIM celebration? We already did that earlier today, Baruch Hashem. I heard from a rabbi that online conversions are not valid. You heard correctly. Online conversions are meaningless. Jewish conversion is determined by halacha. Halacha says that a Jew has to go through a process. In order to convert, they have to dip into a mikveh, and they have to accept the Torah in front of 3 kosher dayanim, which have to be Orthodox Jews, not conservative, not reformed, not non-Jewish. They have to be considered kosher dayanim. If it's a male, they have to have a brit milah, circumcision. Even if they had a circumcision at birth at some hospital, they still has to be checked before the conversion date to make sure that there was a proper brit milah, or if not, they have to fix it under the supervision of the Bet Din. And if they have a proper circumcision, then they would still have to do what's called a atafat adam, which is just pricking the male member with a small needle in order to generate some blood. It's like the same thing that they use for people that test their bloods for diabetes. So it's that little tiny little needle, and that's called atafat adam. But it's a process. Conversion is not something you could do on the internet. Conversion is not something that you could just simply pay for it and therefore you become Jewish. Conversion means that you are accepting upon yourself the laws of the Torah, and the laws of the Torah also include the laws of conversion. Is it true that converts are Jews who in their past life renounced Hashem and the Torah? It's possible, but not necessarily always the case. There's no rule of thumb that it's always that. Sometimes it's Jews that abandon the Torah in their previous carnation in one way or another, whether it's going to idolatry or it's being intermarried or something else. And sometimes it's a very precious non-Jewish person that was born non-Jewish and always was non-Jewish, but was one of the people of the nations that wanted the Torah at the time Am Yisrael received the Torah, but couldn't be part of it because the nation that they were part of did not want the Torah. And therefore Hashem promised those neshamot that they will have a chance to convert later on. In so many words, it's not for naught that somebody wants to convert. If somebody wants to convert to Judaism, authentic Judaism, that means that their neshama is connected to Judaism, from some point. It doesn't make them Jewish. It doesn't mean that they were Jewish necessarily. It could be, but not necessarily. But either way, it means they have to convert. There are many times that people that spend too much energy on who they were in their previous life or who they believe they are in this life. Don't waste your time. Follow the Torah. Live the Torah. Don't, harp on the past or delve too much into the future, because the present is what we have to live. The present is what we have to be concerned about, not the past or even the future, because the past there's nothing you can do about, and the future is not really something that you can control. What you can control is the present. If you have a good present, the future is more likely to be pleasant also. So the Messiah is supposed to be from the lineage from the bloodline of King David. So how his DNA doesn't matter for a couple of reasons. Number one, we have a tradition of people that have come from a certain family. Like for example, the Kohanim. We know that the Kohanim go all the way back to Aaron HaKohen. We also know that the vast majority of Jews in the world today are from the tribe of Yehuda, which is the tribe of King David. So many Jews today could very well be from the family of King David, but that doesn't necessarily mean that everybody's Mashiach. That's number one. Number two, we don't have to figure out who the Mashiach is, because the Torah already promises us that Eliyahu Navi is going to come and he's going to tell us in the name of God who the Mashiach is. So we don't have to exert any type of energy figuring out when the Mashiach is going to arrive or who the Mashiach is going to be. We don't have to do any blood checks, we don't have to do any DNA checks or anything like that. So that's another reason. Now the third aspect of it is that while people put a lot of weight into DNA as far as they believe it's something that's so substantial that you need to change the law based on it, what they don't realize is that as sophisticated as DNA is, the criminals are more sophisticated. They're more sophisticated, and there's actually ways to alter the DNA, alter the tests, make mistakes, and this is something that apparently people are either ignoring or they're oblivious of. But either way, the Torah did not tell us to determine who's Jewish and who's not based on DNA tests that only became possible in recent generation. The Torah told us to determine who's Jewish and who's not based on the law. The law says if the mother is Jewish, then the son or the daughter is Jewish. If the person converts to Judaism, then they accept the burden of Torah upon them, they follow it, then they're Jewish. That's it. We don't need the DNA test. We don't need modern day technology in order to change our Torah. We can use modern day technology to help our lives as long as it doesn't contradict the Torah or expect us to change the Torah, but to just simply decide a new law based on something that just came up in the last couple of decades that's questionable, whether it's legitimate or not in many aspects, and certainly can be manipulated. I'm not really sure if you guys are as educated about DNA as you think you are. But either way, Judaism does not determine itself based on DNA. Judaism is determined based on the laws of the Torah. This is the same exact thing that I tell all of the foolish leaders and absolute morons in some cases that go from the Hebrew Israelites that harp on the fact that they are Jewish, even though they don't follow the Torah, even though they don't know anything about Torah, even though they follow idolatry of the New Testament, even though they literally don't have any concept whatsoever of what determines your Judaism or not. They determine themselves to be the real Jews based on their skin color because they're of darker complexion. This literally, anyone that learns Torah, literally, if you have a scale where on one side there's intellect and on the other side there's stupidity, what would happen is if you put the determining factor of how the Hebrew Israelites, which were originally called, I think, black Hebrew Israelites, because most of them are black people, but not necessarily all of them anymore. Apparently they're recruiting some Mexicans and some other people of darker complexion. Pretty much as long as you're not Jewish really, and as long as you're not white, you could be part of this new movement. Anyway, what happened here is that if you look at their deciding factor of what makes you Jewish, being the skin color, you put it on the scale. One side is stupid, one side is smart, intellect, right? When you put it on that side, what would happen is that the stupid side would be so heavy that it would break the scale, go through the ground all the way to the bottom of the equator. And then everybody's going to sue you because you ruined the world. Like literally, if you actually put this vomit that comes out of their mouth and you put it on a scale, you make it tangible, you put it on a scale, the mass of stupidity would be at such a high level, it would literally put a hole in the world. That's how dumb it is. Why? Because the Torah is as clear as day with what the rules are. It's not subjective. It's not, determined by different people we have clear laws. And when a person comes to the Jewish people and starts telling them that they're not really Jews, and that's because you're not black, that's because all these stupid things, it's like, I can't believe that people are falling for this. It's sad state for humanity. Now, of course, there are some people that want to believe that they're Jews for different reasons, but again, there's no reason to live a fantasy. You want to be Jewish, you're welcome to become Jewish. Follow the Torah. Follow what makes people Jewish, which is following the Torah. Simple. Then you say, yeah, but many Jews don't follow the Torah. You're right, many Jews don't follow the Torah, but since their mother was Jewish, and this is not something that just happened. Their mother and their mother's mother and their mother's mother, all the way to the original, they were Jewish. Whether they follow the Torah or not, they're still Jewish. Now, halachically, you don't treat them as a regular Jew. You treat them as someone, obviously, it's a sinner. But nonetheless, they're still Jewish. They're still within that Torah law. But you that came in as a non-Jew, from non-Jewish parents, to just decide that you're Jewish because you have a certain skin color? I mean, I don't know where they found this, if not a comic book, but it's certainly not in the Torah. It's certainly not in the Torah. And it's sad that this movement is a cult. is unfortunately growing and is just really harming people's lives. It makes them very, very hateful people. Now, of course, they're going to say, I'm hateful and I'm this and I'm that. But, by all means, anyone that looks at the track record of people that I've helped and compares it to all of the Black Hebrew Israelite organizations combined all of them throughout all of history, combine it to what I do by myself, without even including Rav Ephraim, without including Rav Shavit, without including anybody else, just me myself, against all of the Black Hebrew Israelites, throughout all of their history, and you compare it to what I do in 1 month, 1 week, and there's no comparison. Why? Because they don't help anybody. They help themselves. They enrich themselves, they make people hateful, and unfortunately, they don't help anybody. And this came from their own people. Their own people that have contacted us, their own people that have written publicly about them, their own people that have come out of this cult have admitted that it's literally a whole big fraud. But everything that's against the Torah is a fraud. It's just that, unfortunately, people are blinded by all types of false beliefs. Sometimes those false beliefs come from within, and you have to remove it. If it's against the Torah, it's against the truth, it's against God. Stay away from it. Next question. Let's see. Seen one of the book. I don't know what the question is. Okay. As a Noahide, am I required to tithe? And then the other question is, it's somebody else, but whatever, that's good. It's, can you expand on the words from before, the worlds from this before this world? Okay, so as far as a Noahide, are you obligated to tithe, to give 10% of your income? Obligated? No. Is it a good recommendation? Sure, if you're going to give it for the sake of publicizing Torah and helping Jews do tshuva. It's certainly going to help you in your life and your eternity. If you help one Jew do tshuva, needless to say, if you help many Jews do tshuva, you're going to have endless amount of blessings both in this world and the next, much more than you will get from anything else that you do on your own. But as far as, is it obligation? No, just like it. You're not obligated to work a full-time job. You're not obligated to be ambitious. You're not obligated to succeed. You're not obligated to eat a healthy diet. You're not also obligated to eat very much. But we do, usually, many of those things that I just mentioned. Why? Because there's a benefit to doing all of those things. There's a benefit to doing all of those things. And a person that looks at the benefit of what they do is going to live accordingly. When a person looks at the benefit of simply this world, they're going to live for this world. When a person looks at the benefits of eternity, they're going to live their life according to what is going to benefit their eternity. As far as the worlds before this world, the Gemara in Masechet Chagiga, page 12a, says that HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world from nothing, meaning that before there was a world, there was just Him. There was just Him, and He had to, in essence, minimize Himself, if you will. It's obviously figuratively speaking, but minimize Himself in order to make room for His creation. And once he minimized himself, he created everything from a single point, and it allowed it to expand. This is obviously referring to the universe that's expanding until he roared and for it to stop. This roar is scared the heavens, and from fear they stopped expanding. And this is why the fear of God is called fear of heaven. Fear of God feels fear of heaven. So it's symbolic of that original fear. Now, of course, this was not the end of creation. Creation continued. The Zohar Kadosh talks about how, what was HaKadosh Baruch Hu doing? It's even in the Gemara. What was HaKadosh Baruch Hu doing before this world? Now, he created the Torah before he created the creation. 974 generations before he created this world, he created the everything. He created the Torah with black fire on white fire. But before he created this world, if you will, there were other worlds. So Hashem creates and builds and destroyed world. And in essence, there were 6 worlds before this world. This is the 7th and the final world. We don't have much information about what was in there, what was in those other worlds. But nonetheless, there were apparently other worlds. Whether it was a same thing like we have right now, or something different, obviously, that I don't remember that existing or learning that anywhere. But from my understanding and what I've learned from my Rav and even other Rabbanim that have talked about this particular topic, is that and ultimately the primary of all creation is this world, is this life, not something that happened before or something that will happen after. Now, as far as the reason why there's not much discussion about these other worlds or other planets, or let's say topics such as UFOs, or even other creatures that are within this planet. There are many other creatures and entire civilizations that live in this world, some of which are mentioned in the Gemara, some of which are discussed and were actually communicating and living among Shlomo HaMelech. He brought them into his kingdom. There's a whole nation of small people, and there's all types of sea creatures. There's all types of different creatures that are in this world. Ones that have multiple heads, ones that are very, very small. Many times, if you